The steam rose like judgment from the wreckage. Half a hot tub jutted from the earth like a shattered UFO, chlorine-slick water gushing into a freshly opened sinkhole. Meanwhile, Linda Bramble, the HOA president in $800 yoga pants, screamed at firefighters that this was all Greg's fault. Greg, meanwhile, was calmly roasting a marshmallow over a burning eucalyptus bush, wondering if he'd get charged for that too. I should probably explain how I ended up here, watching my property turn into a disaster zone while the woman who caused it all tried to blame me for everything. My name is Gregory Halpern, though everyone calls me Greg, and this is the story of how my HOA built an illegal spa on my land, ignored every warning I gave them, and then had the audacity to sue me when their vanity project collapsed into the earth. I moved to Willow Hollow for peace. As a divorced civil engineer with a bonsai addiction and a deep love for jazz, I wanted nothing more than to prune trees and be left alone. My modest, well-kept home backed up to a small and used plot of land I owned but the HOA had conveniently decided was community buffer space. That's when I first encountered Linda Bramble, HOA president, CrossFit zealot, and self-declared vibe curator of Willow Hollow. Linda was the type of person who wore athleisure to board meetings and called property violations energy disruptions. She had this way of speaking with a condescending sweetness that made you want to check your blood sugar levels. From day one, she decided I was a problem. Maybe it was because I actually read the CC and RS before signing them. Maybe it was because I questioned the legality of her meditation garden mandate. Either way, I became her favorite target. My first clue that something was seriously wrong came via a newsletter titled Spa Renaissance Begins. The glossy pamphlet featured a stock photo of smiling retirees in robes and a map that clearly showed my land. Not the community land, not the HOA property, but my personal plot that I'd purchased separately and paid taxes on for the past 3 years. I emailed immediately, politely pointing out the error. I called the HOA office and left voicemails. I even sent a certified letter with copies of my deed and property survey. Linda replied with a single line in an email. The community voted. Resistance is regressive. That was it. No acknowledgement of my ownership, no apology for the mistake, just pure dismissal wrapped in New Age nonsense. Then came the noise. Bulldozers at 6 a.m., shirtless contractors named Kyle, and crystal alignment ceremonies that blocked my driveway. I watched in disbelief as they tore up my land, destroying the drainage system I knew existed beneath it. They installed a 10-person jacuzzi, 2 infrared saunas, and something called a mud grotto of intentions. My bonsai trees, which I'd carefully cultivated for years, withered under dumped concrete dust. When I complained about the damage to my garden, Linda had the audacity to fine me $150 for landscape neglect. She said it with this fake concerned tone, like she was doing me a favor by pointing out my failures. The irony of being fined for the condition of plants her construction crew had destroyed wasn't lost on me, but I knew arguing would only make things worse. I paid the fine and started documenting everything. What Linda didn't know was that I wasn't just any homeowner. I was the civil engineer who had designed the drainage maps for Willow Hollow 15 years ago, before the development was even built. I knew every pipe, every runoff channel, and most importantly, I knew about the old subterranean tunnel from the 1950s that ran directly under my property. It had been capped but remained unstable, suitable for light residential use but absolutely not for heavy construction or water features. I tried warning them again, this time with technical drawings and soil reports. I presented my concerns at the monthly HOA meeting, speaking calmly and professionally while Linda rolled her eyes and checked her phone. She interrupted me mid-sentence to announce that the Community Wellness Committee had already approved the project and that my negativity was affecting the neighborhood's chakras. The other board members, too intimidated by her aggressive positivity, just nodded along. The spa opened with a ribbon-cutting ceremony that Linda live streamed on the neighborhood Facebook page. She wore a silk pantsuit and gave a speech about transformation and community healing. She thanked everyone except me, despite the fact that it was built on my land. I watched from my kitchen window as residents in terry cloth robes took selfies in the mud grotto. 3 lawsuits waiting to happen, I muttered to my coffee, having no idea how prophetic those words would be. Day 3 of the spa's operation, the ground rumbled. It started as a low vibration that made the water in the hot tub ripple in strange patterns. Then came the cracking sound, like ice breaking on a frozen lake but deeper, more ominous. I was in my garage when I heard Linda's scream, high-pitched and incredulous, as if the earth itself had personally betrayed her. At 11:14 a.m., the earth swallowed half the spa during a chakra alignment seminar. The sinkhole opened up like a hungry mouth, pulling the hot tub down at a 45-degree angle. The infrared saunas tilted and crashed into each other like dominoes. The mud grotto of intentions became an actual mud pit as the underground water main I'd warned them about finally gave way under the pressure. No human casualties, thank God, though a chihuahua named Mitzi had to be rescued by the fire department. But the damage was catastrophic. Linda tried to spin it as a natural disaster at first. She stood in front of the wreckage, still in her yoga pants, telling a reporter with a straight face that sometimes the earth reclaims spaces that aren't meant for human intervention. She actually tried to make it sound spiritual, like the sinkhole was some kind of message from the universe. The reporter looked skeptical, especially when muddy water started seeping through Linda's designer sneakers. Then the local news aired my warning emails. Some anonymous source, definitely not me, had forwarded my entire correspondence with the HOA to Channel 7. They ran a segment called Disaster Waiting to Happen with dramatic music and everything. They showed my soil survey, my drainage maps, and most damning of all, the email where Linda called my professional expertise regressive fear-mongering. The city inspector arrived the next morning, then the county inspector that afternoon. By the end of the week, the EPA showed up because the spa's herbal detox waterfall had been leaching lavender sludge into a protected creek that ran behind the neighborhood. Turns out that Linda's wellness water contained enough essential oils and mysterious minerals to qualify as environmental contamination. When Linda tried to blame me for not warning them strongly enough, I handed over a folder titled Documented Warnings Ignored by HOA Leadership. It had color-coded tabs, chronologically organized emails, notarized soil surveys, and even a USB drive with recordings of the HOA meetings where I'd voiced my concerns. The city attorney actually whistled when he saw how thoroughly I'd documented everything. He said with genuine admiration that he'd never seen such a comprehensive cover-your-assets file. The HOA's insurance company launched their own investigation and quickly determined that the board had acted with gross negligence by building on land they didn't own and ignoring documented safety warnings from a licensed engineer. They refused to cover any of the damages, leaving the HOA and Linda personally liable for everything. That's when Linda made her biggest mistake. Instead of accepting responsibility, she doubled down and actually sued me for creating an attractive nuisance and failing to properly maintain my property in a way that would have prevented the collapse. Her lawyer, who looked about as comfortable as a cat in a bathtub, presented the argument that since I knew about the underground hazards, I should have done more to prevent the HOA from building there. The judge's expression when he heard this argument was something I'll treasure forever. He actually took off his glasses, cleaned them, and put them back on as if hoping the case would make more sense with clearer vision. It didn't. I countersued the HOA for land encroachment, property damage, emotional distress, and theft of property. My lawyer, a brilliant woman named Sarah who specialized in property law, absolutely destroyed them in court. She presented evidence that Linda had knowingly built on private property, ignored multiple warnings from a qualified expert, and had even attempted to forge community votes to justify the construction. The court ruled in my favor resoundingly. Not only did the HOA have to pay for complete land restoration and reimburse me for my destroyed bonsai collection at replacement value, but Linda was personally fined $50,000 for willful negligence and violation of property rights. The judge called her actions a stunning display of arrogance and disregard for both law and safety. To pay the fines and restoration costs, the HOA had to auction off the broken spa equipment and implement a special assessment that tripled everyone's monthly dues for 2 years. The neighborhood turned on Linda faster than she could say namaste. I bought the jacuzzi at the auction for $12 and repurposed it as a koi pond in my restored garden. When Linda walked by and saw it filled with fish and lily pads, her face turned purple with rage. I simply waved and said with a pleasant tone that it's a water feature now. The day of the HOA emergency meeting to vote on Linda's removal was like a suburban gladiator match. She showed up in a power suit, armed with a presentation about forgiveness and moving forward. But the residents weren't having it. One by one, they stood up to detail how her actions had cost them thousands in special assessments. The vote was unanimous except for Linda's own vote for herself. Linda Bramble was impeached from the HOA presidency and banned from holding any community position for 5 years. The judge also ordered her to complete 100 hours of community service specifically related to property law education. She now runs a wellness van that parks outside Trader Joe's offering unsolicited aura readings, though I heard she had to sell her Range Rover to pay her legal fees and now drives a 2003 Honda Civic with a bumper sticker that says blessed and stressed.